there was already a good discussion about the role of a church planter and the kind of a process of church planting training, what's the big picture. I can maybe explain shortly how I see it actually across Europe, that church planting is just one part of a church planting, training or development of church planting teams. So what I see across Europe is that when you lead a church planting initiative, whatever, you actually work on recruitment, recruitment of new church planters. Then you have some assessment that is actually the network next door, that actually will help you to see if the people that want to be the key leaders or church planters are the right people. Yeah, because not everybody can plant church, but people can join the core group, can be part of the church planting group. But you need to know if the leader is actually maybe not fully prepared, but at least in some key areas of church planting, if they have a proven potential or not. And that's the network next door that actually is part of the whole process or whole kind of complex of church planting. Then it's training part. Yeah, you need to know something, at least something about the key processes that go on within the church planting. So it means from the calling, how the church planter actually has been called to church planting. What about the commitment of the whole team? Are they really committed? What's their vision? What is their missional kind of target group or missional model, if they have any? All these kind of questions. What kind of culture of discipleship they have? How they lead people to Christ? What are their relationships with non-believers? All these kind of questions need to be addressed somehow. And part of a good training is really just asking these kind of questions and helping teams to figure out what's the best in their context. We are using the model of M4 that actually is designed in a way that teams are asked these kind of key questions and they have to give answers to them and go through a process where as a whole teams they actually work on them together and plan for maybe next 4 or 5 months in between trainings, and we have 4 trainings in 2 years. So there is a training, and for example in our case, in between trainings there are every team has a coach that is responsible for the team and responsible to call every month, at least once a month, to a leader. At least once in a 3 months or 4 months to visit them physically as a team and meet the leader, and do have some coaching session, and also helps them to stay on track and be accountable to the goals that they defined, that the team actually defined that they want to achieve in a certain period of time, in maybe 5 months. So coaching somehow fits into this whole thing or whole process of really finding, assessing, training, coaching, and of course, working with the environment, with mother churches, with denominations and leaders. All these kind of questions are part of the church planting as well. But just coaching is just one part in that. But of course, they influence each other. For example, in assessment, you will get if you do the one that is trained right now in the next door, you will have a very good information about the church planting couple. If it's a couple, married couple, it's for both. It's actually also for church planters' wives, which is important just to know what level of unity and commitment is there in the couple, because marriage failure or marital problems are one of the key dangers in church planting. If there are problems, and church planting is a hard work, it takes at least maybe 5-6 years before you have a functional church really planted. So it's a hard work, it's time consuming. So to have a couple that actually has at least a basic commitment together to plant church, and the assessment actually will give you as coaches quite thorough information about the leader. We haven't had the assessment tool as in Czech Republic, and the problem for coaching is that actually you spend a lot of time figuring out what's the problem with the person. And it can take you 1 year before you actually know what's going on what's the problem, why things are not going that fast as they could. So also the training, if you coach someone who has no clue about the church planting altogether, it's very hard for them to explain it. So it needs to be connected somehow. I think in your context, so that the church planter actually has enough information and that he can somehow adapt and say, okay, what does it mean for me? What kind of answers I give to the basic questions in a church plant. So it's interconnected. So coach is not a trainer, he is not a teacher, but of course he can give advice. But in principle, the advice should be only on basis of mutual agreement. So we will speak about the role of coach later, but just that's the part of just where the coaching fits in the whole process. Any questions about that? It's quite, I think, obvious, simple. Sorry, if I coach only those who
come to you and ask for it, or do you also?
Yeah. The way how we do it is that we try to find a good coach that would fit into the model, for example, or to the nature of the church plant. They are very diverse, and coaches also have some strengths, and so, but they both have to want it. So normally you don't impose coaching on others, but in our context, it's a part of the training. You need to have a coach for that, and so. But generally, it's good if the church planter actually sees the need, why to have a coach, and is positive about it. Any other questions?
I just add something.
Yeah.
The coaching is a skill, right? So the skill, once you learn a skill, you can apply it in many different places. So some of you are already in ministry and you want to take the coaching skill and apply it as a pastor. So it's a wonderful skill. It's very flexible. But part of it is just understanding, like, what's the goal in the coaching? What is, who am I coaching? Where am I trying to help the person? So yeah, there's a mutual agreement that's set up. But once you learn the skill of coaching, it's got lots of uses. It's a wonderful skill.
Yeah. So the danger is that you will be pushed actually to switch the roles, from coach to mentor, sometimes to teacher, and so we need to understand clearly what really coaching is. Yes. Again, I don't know maybe I have to. So, back to coaching. You have the handouts on philosophy of coaching, actually coming from a secular point of view. They're called systemic coaching. And then what is normally done as a church planting coaching in a church planting context, as I watched it, and I'll try to present way how to merge them into something that could use both parts. I think the coaching, the secular coaching that is really popular right now in management is based on set of kind of assumptions that are written here, and we can read them quickly. But actually, I don't know. Have you ever received unrequested advice from anybody? What were your feelings? Great.
Can we do it?
So why you resisted it?
Because I didn't want it.
Because you didn't want it, and yeah,
Because they can't do it most of the times anyway.
yeah, they don't work. Very often they don't work. Any other reasons why?
You didn't feel like they listened to you.
Yeah.
Before they told you the advice.
So you don't feel that they listen, that they really understand your context, that they are imposing on you some solutions that you know that will not work, that actually they push you to do something that you don't want to do, and that's the basic problem that actually coaching is working with. That actually people are resistant to advice or to interventions from outside because they say that people are the best experts on their solutions, on their problems, and somehow that you can't also directly change person. So that's a classic, I think, also question how you can change other person. You know, of course, if you have employee, you can tell them, okay, you will do this and this and this. But normally it doesn't change the person. Yeah, they only do the order, and that's it. But if you really want to change a person, how you can do that? And it's a living organism based on a free will. And how can God change a person? You know how Jesus approached people when he wanted them to change something in their lives. And we'll speak about it in the section on asking good questions. That actually Jesus was very unique in a way how he was able to destabilize people's thinking. You know, so the art of actually coaching is help people with the good questions or with multiple actually ways to let them rethink what they do and how they do it, and help them to find their own solutions, the best solutions in their context. So the secular coaching is based on these assumptions that you can't directly change them because they have to choose the right solution on the basis of their free decision. The assumption is also that if you do, as a coach, bring your own solutions, what will happen? You tell them, okay, I see that you are really struggling in making disciples. I think you should consider, I don't know, starting triads, groups of 3, and really go deep into accountability questions. And what sort of reaction would you? What does it mean? What do you hear when I come to you and say, okay, I see the problem, this is it. What will happen? The question is if you have the freedom to choose what you think is the best in the context. So the role of a coach can be to give some suggestions, but only as alternatives, as something that would enlarge spectrum of choices that can have, but you don't actually impose on them solutions that they haven't agreed with. Because especially if you are in a position of authority, for example, you are a church planting coordinator in the denomination, and you come to this poor church planter and say, okay, you should consider this. Of course, you feel obliged to do that.
Most coaches do bring you to the place where you decide what is solution. You're not suggesting solution.
I think, actually, to be very blunt, I actually attended or participated in a coaching training before, and it's extremely difficult to become good coaches when you had an experience as a pastor, because you are expected to give advice and to give expert knowledge all the time. People expect you to solve their lives. So yeah, I don't know what's your experience, but it was very difficult for some pastors to switch from this kind of expert mode to mode of, okay, your life is your responsibility. I will help you through the process of finding what's the best for you, but I'm not responsible for your life. Because the problem with suggesting or with actually imposing solutions on others is that the ownership, goes from the person to you. Maybe even when they say, okay, I will try it, I will do it. But because it was not their suggestion and their idea, they will probably come when it will fail. They will come to you and say, that was your fault. And that's my
Well, my
experience.
kids do that.
Yeah, of course. So ownership is a big thing in coaching. Just be very reluctant and careful about not imposing your solutions. Although maybe you know more, you have more information, you have more knowledge, you know maybe the process, kind of whole process of church planting, and it's painful actually to wait until they figure it out. What's the problem? But sometimes it's important to let them, make some mistakes. But of course, when you see something, serious, it's better to open it. But really on the basis of mutual agreement. Can I just, take off my hat as a coach, and maybe this is what I see. I can be mistaken. I can, but this is something that I would like to ask you about. How do you see that? Just to have courage also to confront them with some issues is important. Yeah. Another assumption is just really secular coaching thinks that the best knowledge and best solutions are within the coachee, within the church planter. Because why they think it? They think it because they thought it through many times already. They have some problems, and they spend a lot of time actually thinking about it. So of course you can see something from outside, but in most cases you are wrong when you give advice, because you couldn't compare with the church planter in the time that they invested in searching for answers in this. So very often you miss the point. So they believe that the knowledge is in the person already, and resources. We can discuss that. I think the basic assumption that you are not, and you don't have to be expert on church planting. It's better if you were a church planter before, because you see the whole kind of a bigger picture. But the problem is that there are very diverse models, very diverse contexts in denominations. When you plant an attractional church that is based on Sundays kind of show-like model, and you come to a guy and coach a guy who actually really wants to plant a very organic church plant, with very decentralized structure, there is a temptation to impose your experience and your kind of model on them, and you just can't do that. You need to let him and let God lead him in a way that God wants him to lead, and not your. And that can be a big temptation. I think one thing that is important also about the secular coaching assumptions is that in a coaching you are asking about desired behavior, about the future solution, or about solution projection into the future, and you are not that much focused on more and more describing where was the problem. Normally, when you have someone for a pastoral or counseling session, you dig deeper and deeper into the problem. Just you want to understand more, all the details. But there is a proven fact that actually the more you know, the more you are stuck in the problem yourself as well. So the way how secular coaching works is that they are asking about the solution, about the future. So let's say, we have a problem in commitment of our, that I have a team, church planting team, that is, I feel that is not committed to the church planting project that we have. So you can ask, okay, why, and what's the history of the people, and how did you form the core group, and and things. Or you can ask, okay, so tell me, how would it look like differently if they are really committed? What would be different? How would it look like? It's it's solved. The whole team is committed. Tell me what's different. And the reason why coaches ask these questions is that normally, if you ask about the details of the problem, the person that you are coaching is just repeating all the problems or things that they already were thinking about. But if you provoke them to actually think about the future state, the solution, they need to think again. Okay, what will be different? Maybe we will have a meeting where we will think about the commitments that we have together, and maybe if there is a shared vision actually, and maybe I haven't done that, so we will have a meeting, or whatever. It just mobilizes their capacity to think again about solutions. So that's another kind of basic assumption for coaching. Questions about it? Okay, I think everything is written there. The problem, there are some problems with secular coaching ideas from the perspective of Bible. I tried to summarize them here. The problem is sin, actually. The idea that living systems or organisms or people organize themselves optimally is just false, because if you are corrupted by sin, you'll not always choose the best solutions. I think the problem is that all these roles in our context, European context, very often merge. Yeah, that you do everything. That you train, that you lead, that you pastor them, that you coach them, and that's it. So of course it's much better when you have a system within your denomination or network where it's done by multiple people. You train coaches who actually have the knowledge how to coach, and they are not primarily working as the leaders who lead the teams or trains or. So it's better to have multiple people involved and specialists that actually, yeah. So even, for example, one example, we had 5 denominations in the church planting training in Czech Republic, and we found out that it's much better to have a coach from a different denomination. Why? Because they were much more willing to say hard things or confront them with questions that normally, if you know them from pastoral conferences from your denomination, you know all the background, all the problems, all the other, and you are afraid of confronting them. So it's better to have a wider range of people that can help. Sorry.
I'm confused.
Okay, that's normal.
Okay, maybe somebody could just say, mentors train,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Let's say you will get A4 with all the definitions.
This afternoon.
I apologize for not printing them.
Coach is supervised, I understand, I'm just trying to figure out these 5 terms. I'm confused.
Yeah, there is mentor, leader, supervisor. That's we really try to focus on coaching. That is really a very specific version of development interviews or development conversations, focused on the most relevant issues that the people have right now in their lives or in their church planting context, and really learning the skill how to lead such a conversation with them. So that's very kind of a narrow understanding, but I try to explain that it's more complex and that it's very often it means that we switch heads, even during one session. I think the business coaching, can work even when you have actually no relationship with the coach. But I think in church planting, especially in church planting, you can't do that. You need to be relationally involved and engaged with the church planter's life and church planting team, because especially in Europe, it's important to be supportive. It's a hard work and encouraging, and really give face to them that they can do it. Very often the coach is the only one that actually works or comes from outside of the team to help them. So because even good church planters die spiritually because of isolation. So, and very often the church planting coach is the only person that they can talk to. So of course you can't be relationally distant. You actually you can't do that. So of course you need to build trust. You need to build relationships with them. Be generous with the person. Build trust with the whole team before you start. So it's much better to for example meet the team before they start the whole process. Just get to know them. Because relationships really matter. That's the difference, I think, that I pointed there from the business side. Of course, the difference between business coaching and Christian coaching or church planting coaching is that the God is part of the equation. Normally in a business coaching, it's all about the individual and what resources and knowledge he has. But of course, in our context, we thinking about what God's resources and God knowledge has, and how the person actually relates to God, and how he actually lives life that is somehow shown in the Gospels. But even there, you can do it in a way of, you don't do that. You just kind of a blaming mode that is just increasing guilt and feelings of guilt. That's quite a normal thing from the pulpit. Or you can do it in a more Jesus way. And the question is how Jesus, if Jesus was a coach, I'm not sure. But back to the question of discipleship. I think it's really interesting as a coach to watch how Jesus was talking to people and why he asked so many questions. That was one of the questions for tomorrow. Why someone who knows everything needs to ask any questions. And if he asked more than 100 questions in Gospels, why he do that? Why he used parables, why he used paradoxes, statements that actually were very hard for people to handle, or to, I call it kind of a nails in the head. If you don't hate your mother and father, you are not worth following me. It's the nail in the head. They couldn't sleep at all because how it's possible? What does it mean? So he was very effective in destabilizing the system of their minds, and actually he used many tools that confronted them with the reality of the kingdom. So they couldn't stay the same. They would have to respond or refuse, but nothing in between. So if you look at the way how Jesus was speaking with people and trying to help them with change, very often he just brought a challenge to them that they couldn't avoid. It was very interesting. Or he exposed them, for example, disciples to a situation where they had to respond and taste the reality of the kingdom. So some principles of coaching, I think you can see in a way how Jesus tried to change people. And I think the greatest destabilizer is the cross. It's just either you will refuse it or accept it, but and so the question how God is changing us is, if we are free persons, it's really important, and it's important for coaching as well. So how do you ask questions about real issues? Because we care about other people, but how, if you see that they have marital problems, how do you deal with that? How do you ask them to reframe their situation or to address it, not to avoid it? How would Jesus do that, and how he has done it with people who had problems with, I don't know, money, or with, with hypocrisy, or what tools he used, and it's really interesting to watch it. So maybe last comment about this. If you read the book, The Jesus Model, that Dietrich Schindler wrote, the interesting idea about the book is that actually Jesus was the first church planter. That if it's written that I will build my church, that actually what he had been doing with his disciples was a model actually how to create a first community of people who then planted other churches. And why he had been doing what he had been doing is interesting question. Because normally we speak about Paul as the key church planter, but not Jesus. But if you look at current church planting, you see that actually many church plants try to redefine what church is and how it looks like and how people actually should live as the disciples. And then Jesus is actually, in some cases, much more relevant in a rhythm of living with people, of interaction with non-believers, or with, all these kind of things. So that's, last 10 minutes. Okay. Tomorrow we will have maybe 30 minutes for a kind of a model coaching session. So there is a kind of a structure, typical structure of a typical church planting coaching session that is traditionally used. So under point 3, under C3. Very often in church context, coaching is more just a supervision. So we will just come, agree on the time frame and so on, relate to each other, just have good atmosphere, and then review development, review what's the progress from the last time, about the goals that we had. And what were encouragement, disappointment, celebrate success, blessing, and then just explore what are the opportunities, what they see as something that is relevant for them. A lot of prayer there, but but in some sense it's more a supervision, just keeping them accountable in the process, and just talking about different issues, their self-development and training, and how they. How they apply the principles of coaching that they heard at the training session, or of course you're asking about their personal lives, about how the church planting group is doing, and so on. But it's mainly just monitoring what were the goals, what was the reality, if the goals were met or not, what are the opportunities, okay, what do you see for the future, and if really they are committed to do it or not, or what are the reasons. So normally the business principles, the business coaching principles are not that big part of coaching as I watched it. So it was more limited to just monitoring and supervising, and sometimes even teaching and instruction of a church planter, and just monitoring if something wrong is not really going on there. If we are not wasting money as a mother church, if we are not getting into troubles, which is also part of just getting broader picture of where the church planter is and how it operates. But the model that is described in the section, I think, Roman 2, synthesis, is about actually combining these two. You should probably monitor what's the progress, where what has happened from the last time. So if we go through it very quickly tomorrow, we will try to show it, but also ask you to probably to coach each other. So prepare your topics. So very quickly on the page number 4. It's important to start with really creating the atmosphere, maybe focus on life issues, maybe asking what was most relevant for you at the last session, for example. If I would start it tomorrow, what was most helpful for you? Important is to define your role. If you start a coaching session and it's really kind of a narrow coaching session, let's say, okay, my role now is not to instruct you, to give you advice, to be your supervisor or boss. Right now, my role as a coach is to help you with the questions and with non-directive, process, help you to find your own solutions to your issues, or to issues that are most relevant in your context right now. Of course, maybe what God is saying to you, what you want to work on right now, We have 1 hour or 30 minutes. What would be most beneficial area or change that you would like to see, and that we can work together. So that's just explaining and defining the role. Sometimes you can sign a coaching contract at the beginning so that the roles will be clear. Also to the coach, to the coachee, but also to the team, so that they wouldn't expect you to solve all their problems, so that the ownership would be really theirs, and they would understand your role. So you will get example of this contract by email later, but it's important. Of course, you can introduce yourself and so on. Pray together. I think just that's not part of the business coaching, but I think that's one of the differences. We need Holy Spirit and His wisdom and His action, because otherwise it's just us doing what we think is good. Of course, you can do kind of a progress review or on an agreed action plan if they do an action plan as a team or as an individual planter. But then you come to a stage where you need to ask this question that I mentioned. What's the most relevant thing that you want to work right now? What change you would like to see? What is really worth talking about that would really have the greatest impact in your life or ministry? All these kind of questions that set the stage. We will speak about them tomorrow. And you have a phase where you generate topics. What's the best? And sometimes it's not the first thing. Sometimes it is. But really, your role is to find what's the most important topic for him. Sometimes it's his marriage, or it's something else that is not covered by training, but it is really important for him right now. And you can work on marital problems. You can work on models of discipleship, whatever. But your responsibility is to ask enough questions that you are sure that this is the right problem. This is the right thing that is most relevant for him or for the person. Then when you are sure and you assure yourself that this is you agree on the area, and then you start with maybe formulating key expectations, outcomes. You can portray what the future would look like in this key area with the questions that you can read some of them in the handout that's in your actually what kind of questions you can use to help to clarify actually what they really want to see in the future, how the change would look like in the area, what kind of solutions he wants to say. So that's out of asking questions and open constructive questions that help him to figure out what actually he wants to see, what change he wants to see. And maybe, I don't know, if, example, discipleship culture in my church plant. So really define what they want to have at the end. Do you want to have a clear, and say, okay, I want to have a clear, maybe 3 steps how I can build a discipleship culture, and maybe what materials so let them ask them about the expectations and outcomes they want to see at the end. So you can check at the end if their expectations were satisfied. So you can work about it, visualize the future, visualize the situation, focus on solutions, and so on. You can listen to God, of course. You can stop and pray if you don't have the wisdom, or ask if there's anything that prevents. Maybe what's the problem? Why we are not disciples? Because maybe I'm not a disciple, and they need to listen to God that something is wrong. So it's not just about nice ideas, but maybe about something that God has to change in my heart. And then, of course, you can agree on the process. Okay, maybe this really, I see that I need to make these 3 steps in developing discipleship culture, and your responsibility is to put some SMART goals there, some time frame, action steps or action plan for this area. And kind of agreed date for the next meeting where you can check if any progress has been made. And at the end, what is important is actually also feedback. Was it helpful? What was most helpful for you? in this session? Was it helpful at all? Sometimes they say, okay, it wasn't, which is not okay. But it's important that they have time where they can summarize what was important for them, because it's much more effective in learning if you give them opportunity to summarize what was the most relevant and important for them. And if they ask, and if you agree on it, you can present alternatives. For example, you can say, okay, I'm stop as a coach, and these are the alternatives in developing discipleship culture in your church plant that I see. Maybe these are the books that you can read. I'm not imposing any solutions to you, but you can study that, and maybe we can talk about it later if you are interested. But these are the alternatives, and then of course they implement. So this is the basic structure, and we can use it. We can use it tomorrow. But try to read it. Please read the handouts with the questions so that you can have maybe more arsenal for tomorrow.